special thing in store. The light bulb inside my head says, get out and play, 'cause you never feel this way. It's my lucky day, it's my lucky day, it's my lucky day, my lucky day. Don't need a pot of gold, a rabbit's foot or to be told. It's my lucky day, it's my lucky day.
Hello, my friends. Happy Tuesday. I am so glad to be here with you again this week. I am so excited to welcome my guest today. I have with me Nermine Zakhary, who is the founder and chief empowerment officer of Strengths Edge Coaching. Through one-on-one and group coaching and facilitating team workshops, she unearths your unique talents to reach your full potential in your personal and professional life. With her relationship building strengths combined with Clifton strengths and positive intelligence programs, Nermine helps you become your best self and navigate challenges with ease. The outcome is greater clarity to support creative problem solving, increased happiness, and better performance. Nermine comes to strength coaching with over 20 years of experience in the training industry at Highland Hospital and Xerox Corporation. She holds a master's degree in education, specializing in instructional design for online learning from Capella University. And in her free time, Nermine supports her local community and prioritizes quality time with family and friends. So, Nermine, I am so happy that you're with me tonight. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Amanda. I'm so happy to be here.
And those of you tuning in for our conversation today, please drop a comment in the chat. Let us know that you're here. We don't know that you're here until you tell us. So please do. We would absolutely love to make you a part of this conversation as well. So, Nermine, tell us about yourself. Where does your story with strengths start?
Oh, it's always so hard to know where to start here, Amanda. I'll start with where I learned about strengths, and then maybe we can backpedal a little bit.
Perfect.
So I work at Xerox, and I'm a member of the Xerox Leadership Association, and they do these fabulous learning programs. One of them was called the Discover Your Strengths. And of course, it sounded really interesting because I know that when you go to an interview, someone asks, you very likely will be asked, well, what are your strengths and what are your weaknesses? And I wouldn't have been able to tell you. My husband had taken the Clifton Strengths prior and had mentioned it to me. And so this was a really great opportunity to learn. So I bought the book. It was only $10 at the time, did the assessment, and I got back my results, and I didn't like them. I didn't like my results. They were all these, the relationship words, which I called at the time fluffy relationship words that I thought had nothing to do with anything that I had achieved over the course of my career. So I went, I got ready for the workshop. Really, I walking in, I was really thinking this is probably just another silly personality test, But I signed up, so I'm going to show up. So, we're the facilitator sharing a presentation. We watched a couple of videos of Marcus Buckingham, and then we did this exercise. She asked us to think back a couple of weeks. What do you look forward to? What did you enjoy doing? What made you feel strong? And we had to share those with someone sitting next to us, and along with the list of our top 5 strengths. And I'm sharing. I'm feeling a little bit more positive, and I'm sharing. And then he's pointing at my strengths. He said, "Nermine, you were using that one." And then I would share something else. "Nermine, you were using that one." And I was like, wait a minute, what's going on here? No, these aren't my strengths. These aren't my strengths. And it hit me like a ton of bricks. When I'm using my strengths, I'm happy. The stories that I shared with him, and I'm also doing something important, maybe, or making some kind of an impact. Accomplishing something. And it really it dawned on me that I'd spent the bulk of my adult life trying to live up to other people's expectations and never feeling like I'm meeting them, or comparing myself, always comparing myself to someone else and never feeling good enough. And for the first time in that moment, it was okay to just be me. It was a really, really big deal.
That sounds like a really, really big deal. And that is something I think we all can, most of us relate to, this idea of thinking we should be something else. So I'm so curious. You
Mhm.
said you were disappointed with your results at first. Do you
Yeah.
mind sharing what your strengths are?
Oh, happy to. So they are, well, the first set that day were empathy, uh, adaptability, connectedness, significance, and relator. So these were all five on the relationship side of the strengths spectrum. Four of them relationship building. Well, we can talk a little about this more later, but when one of them in the influencing, but they were just relationship words. Like I said, I didn't think they had anything to do with what I'd achieved. And the two that hit me the most were empathy and adaptability. Empathy, see, I saw them as problems in my life. They were pain points,
Mm.
not something to be. I don't want to say proud. Not something I was really happy about, because empathy for me was ruminating about conversations. I said too much. I know I offended them, or I didn't say enough, and I didn't really serve the need, or just always ruminating about conversations. I couldn't let it go,
Mm.
and it just stayed with me. I felt big things, but I just couldn't process them in that. Anyways, so then the other thing was, and then adaptability. I can't make a decision for my life. So, and I don't ask me where do you want to go for dinner, because we'll never get there. It felt like whenever I needed to be making a decision, I really struggled, and it didn't serve me. It didn't serve anyone in my world. And case in point, packing for a trip, packing, can't for the life of, I end up overpacking, and creating more problems than necessary, and all of those things. Just, I saw them as problems in my life, not something to be proud of and use. I wasn't using them effectively by any stretch of the imagination. And I started to see in that conversation that while my empathy does serve when it's used properly, my adaptability affords me, I'm able to provide people options. And I love variety, and I get to insert that into everything that I do, and I do for my family and friends, and create interest and have fun. And I'm able to flex, with the situations and with whatever's going on. And that serves in a big way. So I was able to start seeing them in a much more positive light. And that was for the very first time. That was a big deal.
Yeah. So let's take a big step back for folks listening. So, for folks who have just hopped on, I am here with Nermine Zakhary, and we are talking about strengths. So, can you define strengths for us, Nermine?
Yeah. So our strengths are are the ways that we naturally think, feel, and behave. And Gallup will further define a strength as the ability to consistently provide near perfect performance in a specific activity. So areas where you shine when you're using them effectively in proper amounts.
Yeah, thank you.
Mhm.
So, folks who are joining us, I would love it if you have taken this assessment to pop your strengths in the chat. It would be so fun to see what your top strengths are. And whether you had an experience like Nermine's, where you saw them and you were like, ooh, I'm not really sure that these strengths are for me. I'm not sure I want them. I know when I did my assessment and got my top 5, they are learner, communication, input, maximizer, and responsibility. And I remember being so jazzed at the learner because it made everything make sense for me. So my whole life, I have been so consumed with like not just learning things but building skills. So I'll get really interested in something and go super deep down the rabbit hole, like calligraphy. For a while I was like super into calligraphy and I wanted to do it and I wanted to do it well, and so I took the courses and I bought all the right supplies, and I practiced and practiced and practiced, and then I was like, okay, I feel good about what I've done. Now I'm ready to do something else. And so my whole life, my family has really teased me for this, like jumping from hobby to hobby. And I remember my sister a couple of years ago telling me, maybe if you just stuck with something a little bit longer, then maybe you'd be like amazingly good at it. And I was like, yeah, well, maybe something's wrong with me. And I remember reflecting on it and I was like, no, for me, all these things I'm interested in is all about learning. It's all about the journey. So whether I'm doing calligraphy or taking a basket weaving workshop or working in my garden or learning something for work, I always want to be learning. I want my brain to be churning. I want new information coming in. And I love both the process of learning and all the stuff of learning, all that there is to learn about, and the ways I can collect knowledge and things and organize it. You can tell that's also the librarian in me, wanting to collect and organize and catalog things. But I will tell you, it's the and the communication I also love and dig, but it was the maximizer and responsibility. And the responsibility, especially, I was like, really? I can't get like a sexier strength. Like, that's what I have to have, right? Because there are some that like we read on the list and we're like, oh, that's like, I really want that specific one. Like, that's the good strength. So maybe answer for us, like, are there strengths that are better than other strengths?
There are no strengths that are better than others. You get to be you. You get to be you, Amanda. And I see all of your strengths actually in so the calligraphy example. So I wonder, so you're this desire to learn, you love the process of learning, gathering all of the different ways and gathering as much information as you could. And maximizer might be in there too, because you just took it to a level where you mastered it. You achieved a certain level of excellence, right? And you've mastered it to the degree that you felt you could utilize it when you wanted, and that was it. That was great, and that was enough. That was enough for you. And now it's this beautiful art that's available to you whenever you want to send a card or create something, a piece of art. You've used all of them, and form of communication as well, right? Writing something beautiful, and we'll find responsibility in there somewhere. But there's not one strength that's better. In fact, in strengths-based leadership, a follow-on book that Gallup produced after the introduction of the Clifton Strengths. They talk about they tell stories of leaders who have strengths in each of the 4 domains, and how they leveraged their strengths to lead their teams and excel. So the 4 domains for our listeners are strategic thinking and executing on the task side, and influencing and relationship building on the relationship side of the spectrum. So they took, again, leaders with strategic thinking strengths, executing strengths, primarily. So they had perhaps a minimum of 2, at least probably 3, possibly 4 strengths in that domain, and how they succeeded, how they led effective teams, how they accomplished big things for their organization or for their business. So there is not one or the other. The important thing is to be true to yourself. Where we get into trouble is when we're trying to be something that we're not. Yeah. When we think something else is sexy or attractive, and we want to be more like that, and we don't know how, because that's not how we naturally think, feel, and behave. So then we don't show up as being authentic, and it puts up walls between us and other people, because they can't really get to know the true us. Right. So you need to be you. And that's where you shine, and that's where you have influence, and that's where you can lead.
Yeah. Oh, so beautifully put. So let's take another step back. So you've defined for us what strengths are. How do we know what our strengths are?
So there's a couple ways we can go about it. The non-scientific way is to just start, start reflecting on the activities that you are most drawn to think about where learning really comes easily for you, to think about when you feel the sense of satisfaction, you're just so content after completing an activity. Or when you are, time just flies. You're so engrossed in what you've been doing, and you just lose all track of time, that timelessness. And then there are these moments of these glimpses of excellence, Amanda, where you just notice, wow, I just did that. So those are some things you can start to reflect on. Really great things to, if you journal, great things to start, paying attention to and writing about. And the more scientific way to discover our strengths is through the Clifton Strengths Assessment. Many of you might know it as StrengthsFinder 2.0. And it's since taken on the name of Clifton Strengths, for the original thought leader and founder of the research, Donald Clifton. So this assessment is based on more than 40 years of research. So at some point, psychologists realized that all they knew about people is what's wrong with them, right? They had labels for all of our diseases and maladies, and then they started to notice these pockets of excellence, these moments of extraordinary performance. And like, we don't know anything about that. So Donald Clifton asked the question. He said, well, what would happen if we start focusing on what's right with people instead of fixating on what's wrong with them? That question launched a worldwide research project that led to, of course, to the discovery of hundreds and hundreds of talents that were later mathematically categorized into 34 general talent themes. And then from there, they wrote an assessment that, upon completion, ranks all 34 talent themes for you. And for your an initial investment, You can get your top 5, or you can or go ahead and get the full 34. The most important thing, though, is to focus on your top 5, and they make it easier for you to get to your top 5, because that's where we want to focus.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. So we get our top 5 strengths, and then what? What are we supposed to do with them? Because I know when I looked at mine, again, learner, communication, input, maximizer, responsibility, and I don't think I can say them without counting them off on my fingers. I just realized I do that every time. I was like, okay, cool. This part's me. Like the learner, I totally got. The input, I had to do some digging to figure out what it meant. But like learner and communication, I was like, oh yeah, I can totally see from my past experience that like, yeah, they totally resonate. But like, what do we do with them once we get past? Oh yeah, this makes sense.
So a great place to start is to review the report, the insights report that comes, that's made available to you. And it's customized. So it's not just the textbook definition of each of the strengths. Now, this is customized based on your full 34 and how you responded to the assessment phrases and statements. So, for example, your responsibility might look very different to someone else's responsibility because of the combination of your strengths. So that it's good to read through the customized report description and start highlighting the things that really resonate with you. And oh yeah, that's me. And you start to think, how did they know that about me? Like how are all these phrases, on this piece of paper? So it's kind of cool. That's one place to start. It's really good to have a conversation with someone, and tell them, I just did this thing. I have these words that describe how I show up. What do you think? How do you see these in me? And when is the time that you've seen me use them? And if you want to go a little deeper and really get something juicy out of that conversation, well, what's the impact of me showing up and using this strength? Like what's the difference it's made for you or our project or something in our interactions with each other?
Yeah, and I don't think I have ever on purpose done that. I so I'm married to somebody who is not super reflective in the way that I'm super reflective. I'm a big question asker, and he is just cool with things how they are. And I was just thinking as you were saying that, like if I put him on the spot and asked him and then made him go a layer deeper about like, how has this impacted you? I'm not sure it would be a very satisfying question because I love him dearly and he would give me something, but he'd be like, seriously, you're making me do this again. Like, I don't want to talk. I don't want to talk about you and your strengths and all about you. And that sounds awful. I don't mean to.
So can I offer up something? Has he done his Clifton?
He did reluctantly when I was like, here, take it. I want to see what you are. And I wrote his results down somewhere and can't find them. Because I keep thinking like I should go back and see what his are. Because I think it's really cool. And maybe you could speak to this a little bit about knowing what other people's strengths are to make our relationships better.
Yeah.
Can you talk about that a bit?
Yeah. So our strengths are like a lens on our eyes, and they color everything that we do, the decisions that we make, the ways that we show up, and What's a cool way to look at it is if you were to superimpose all 34 strengths in a circle. If you were to draw a circle and superimpose all of the strengths, and imagine now, prior to that, imagine the circle is a problem that you're trying to solve, and as you're looking at the circle, you think that you have a full 360-degree view, and you've got answers. You've got this. The problem is we don't ever really have 360-degree view of anything, and so we're not really outside the circle looking at it. We're actually right smack in it, in the middle of it. So now imagine around the circle there are your 34 talent themes, strengths, and in front of you are your top 8 to 10. They're in your primary vision, right? They're your primary strengths. They're your go-to easy buttons. It's how you operate. Now, in your peripheral view here on the side, you've got your secondary strengths. Maybe numbers like 9 to 16, 17 or so. You have access to them. You can easily pull them in as needed, and you can tuck them back out. But they're available to you, but they may not be your go-to. Now imagine in your now behind you, in your blind spot, there's half of them. Another says numbers 17 to 34 are technically in your blind spot. You can't see them, you don't understand them, and you can't really touch them, reach them. So what's interesting is the people, when we find that we disagree with someone, or we have a conflict, or we don't really see eye to eye, what's very likely the situation is that your number one strength might be in their blind spot, and vice versa. So now when you think about, wow, this is how I operate, but you operate in a completely different set of strengths, and I don't get how you operate, or the way that you make decisions. You probably don't get the way that I make decisions. So, Amanda, intellectually, we all get that. We know that about our spouse, our kids, our business partners, our colleagues. We intellectually, we know, right? Of course, they operate differently. But when you start to envision it like that, and you think my strength might be in their blind spot, or their strength might be in my blind spot, wow, it just opens the door for a different level of, well, wait a minute, maybe I need to listen. Maybe there's something here I can learn. And here's how I look at it. When I'm in conflict with somebody, I'm totally rejecting anything, right, that they say. When I start to have this understanding, it sheds a layer of that, from what's in between us. And I start to, perhaps I rather than rejecting, I start to tolerate, the differences between us. And as I begin to tolerate, I notice I can start to see some good. Mm-hmm. All right, I'm noticing you're doing, okay, that was kind of cool what you did. And we become more open, right? With each new thing, positive thing that we're noticing, we become more accepting, which opens the door to really seeing the value that someone brings because of the gifts that they have. And now I've gone from rejecting their ideas to, place of, wow, appreciating their approach and inviting that into my world. It just changes the way that we look at each other and can communicate with each other.
Yeah. Oh, that is so beautifully put. And as you were saying that, I was thinking about how much time I spend thinking about other people and their motivations for why they're doing what they're doing. And as you were saying that, I was like, oh, this is my learner. My learner's like, oh, why are you acting this way? Like, what is it? What strength could you be leaning on of yours? That colors the way you see, this particular situation. What is it that you are leading with that that just helps you see the situation, the world in a different way. Like my learner totally eats up, like, what could they
Oh,
possibly
yeah.
be thinking?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So tell us, if you don't mind, right, we take our assessment, we get our top 5 strengths. What is like our top strength more significant than like number 4 or number 5, or are they pretty equal in terms of importance or power in our lives?
It's I think it's going to depend really, Amanda, on the responses in the report, in the assessment. For some, it might be clearly one is far from 2, 3, and 4. Could be 1 and 2 are more prominent. It might be that when you studied your strengths and you're reviewing your customized report, you might find that you might not really identify with numbers 1 and 2 as much. You might find that number 3 or number 4 is more the driver, is your number 1 go-to. At the end, it's not so much about the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's how am I using them to help me get where I want to go? How am I using them to serve? Am I using them effectively and in a balanced approach? Because what kind of throws us out of whack is when it becomes all about one or the other, and another strength doesn't really get to show up, then am I really showing up at my best? I'll tell you, one of my clients, I love this story. She was preparing for interviews, and we were talking about the contributions of her strengths and helping her to articulate them, and also what they need in order for her to show up at her best. So we were reflecting on some of her past success stories, and the one where she was thinking about like one of her most fulfilling job experiences. All of her strengths were at play. Every single one of them was invited to show up and serve in a really meaningful, powerful way. And it just dawned on her that, wow, like I need a job where all of me gets to show up, not just a couple of my strengths, no, all of them, right? I really get to display and use them so that I can serve in the most impactful way. That was a really big aha moment for her, and something to think about.
Yeah, and that is so powerful. And I love how you said something about inviting the strengths to play. I think that was just such gorgeous way to word it. Really inviting those parts of us to show up. So let's say, right, we do our assessment, we kind of start figuring out our strengths. Then what do we do with them? Like, how can we invite them to play?
So this is where some personal reflection really is important. I love what you do and how you help people journal and get their thoughts out on paper. And so one of the things that folks can do is really to start paying attention, whenever it is that you're journaling, to think about fulfilling exercises, fulfilling activities that you participated in, something that brought you great joy, that you absolutely loved, brought you a lot of energy. So write about it. Like, what was it that you loved? And then think about which strength was that was at play, that got to show up, that was invited to play. And then think about moments of frustration. Perhaps when you felt depleted or drained or just really did not like that activity. What was it that you didn't like? And then think about your strengths. Well, maybe is it something what did my strengths need that they might not be getting? And start really just paying attention to those things. For folks who are job searching, to make sure that the job will allow for them to bring their strengths. An obvious one might be, someone who is an influencer, can't be stuck behind the computer, not talking to people all day, right? There's, influence, communication is an influencing strength, and it needs to be able to verbally process, its thoughts, and to share ideas, to tell stories, and it does it brilliantly and paints these beautiful pictures for us. And it can't do that it has to be able to communicate. So to be put in a position where it's not allowed to share and express itself wouldn't serve. You would start to really dread the work and hate coming to work. It's just, those are the things to start paying attention to. And certainly it's really helpful. So journaling and personal reflection is so important. It's also really important to talk with someone out loud about them and really get clear about what it is they see in you so that you can begin to see it. Early on in my journey, I started to get kind of annoyed. Why is it that I need an assessment to tell me who I am? Like, why don't I know? It was really bothering me. So I started to, just chat and have these conversations with folks, and, did a little bit more research and study. And what it really boils down to is that, Amanda, our strengths are so innate to us. We can't see them.
Yeah.
We don't think that they're anything special. It's just how we show up. It's what we do. And in fact, because it's so natural and so easy, and what we do, it's easy for us to think, the person sitting next to me should be able to do the same thing. This is so easy. Like, why can't you do what I do? This is just so natural and so easy. And that, a place for conflict, perhaps, it can create some issues there. And so that's why we need an external source, an external tool to pull it out of us, so that we can see them and really start to see how when we use them, we are contributing. And when we use them, we are making an impact. And at the end of the day, isn't that what each of us wants? To live a life of purpose, to add meaning to our relationships and to the work that we're doing.
Yeah.
This is a great place to look.
And that resonates so hard. This idea of what our strengths are just are so innate to us. And I remember a couple of years ago when I really started talking about journaling, feeling like, well, like it's so easy. It's obvious. This is just like, if I can do it, then surely everybody else, like it must come naturally to them too. And I think back to all of the experiences I've had in my life where things have come easily to me because they were my, they were my strengths. I was leaning on my strengths. And I'm like, I just don't understand. Like it must be universal because it's so easy that like it can't be a hard thing for people. And somebody told me a while ago, and I have it on a sticky note here on my wall, your obvious is your art. Those things that are so, isn't that
I
beautiful?
love
Your
that. Yeah.
obvious is your art. Those things that are so obvious to you, that come naturally, that you can do without breathing, right? That is part of the magic that is you. And so the more I dig into my strengths, and the more what I love about my strengths too, because I've done like all the assessments, is seeing how they all fit together and how every assessment I do gives me just a little more inkling of who I am or how I am. And watching it all come together has been so amazingly beautiful. And that helps me just be more aware of how I move through the world, of how I show up, to take ownership of the energy I bring, knowing in this, in a job, I need these particular things to be met. Right. And I always say, if I'm not growing, then I don't need to be here. And that's my learner talking. My communication tells me, like, I am not, just like what you said before, like I'm like, some days it's fine to be behind a computer, but like once in a while, put me in a crowd, put me on a stage, right? Give me the opportunity to use some of these other strengths, and to remember that I can use my strengths in lots of different ways. Communication for me sometimes is writing, sometimes it's speaking, sometimes it's speaking in front of big groups, and sometimes it's one-on-one conversations. To really appreciate the nuances within a particular strength, I think is really exciting and fun.
Well, I mean, you bring all of them to this live stream and this podcast format, Amanda. And even as you were sharing with me the journey you've taken, in producing these and the conversations you were having, with everything that you're learning, you just take it one step further and make it better. And that's your maximizer. Just, you want to achieve excellence. And as you learn something new, a different way to do it, maybe a better way, you implement input. I mean, all of the pieces to pull together a live stream, and all of the in gathering and seeking out different topics and different conversations to have, is your input. Communication, that's what you teach, and just being helping people how to express themselves, and I just think is so powerful. And then responsibility, even setting us up for our conversation today with all of the steps very clearly outlined, and with expectations. I mean, this is what you can expect and what's going to happen step by step. So just in our limited interaction, all of your strengths were at play to produce this this wonderful show that you do every week with one of your guests. So it's powerful. And yes, it's not just in your work, it's in your relationships, in everything that you do.
Yeah, and I think it's so exciting because I talk all the time in my 9 to 5 about like we're whole people, right? We bring our whole selves to everything we do. Um, and when we are free to bring our whole selves, when we're free to bring our strengths, when we're free to bring our experiences, when we're free to be ourselves in the best, most authentic ways possible, like that's when the magic happens. Like that's when we form the best relationships. That's when we are in the right places at the right times doing the things. That's when everything just clicks into place so beautifully.
So there's ease and there's flow. Yeah.
Yeah. So, Nermine, if folks want to learn more about strengths, can you tell us a bit more about what you do, how you help, and what folks could expect when they work with you?
Sure. So it always starts with the Clifton Strengths Assessment. And then from there is something I touched on lightly, but let me explain in more detail. Our strengths inform the ways that we contribute and also what we need in order to show up at our best. So one way that I work with clients is getting really clear about those contributions and needs. So they're able to articulate them, to start to see them in their life, to start to own them. I like to say that often when I introduce myself, I'll say I'm passionate about helping people see their unique gifts and own their value. And that's my goal in every conversation. So we will focus on articulating the contributions of strengths. We're going to talk about needs so that we can create the perfect an environment where we can thrive. And we'll pull in some other strengths assessments as well and explore again that holistic view. That's one way. Another is we do some deeper work and really start to explore, well, how are my strengths showing up? Am I using them effectively? Am I I don't know, different ways I can. Sometimes I don't show up with them at all. Sometimes I take over and I overuse them a little bit. Sometimes I don't care and I just it's a transaction. And then where I really want to be is where all of my strengths are at play. And I get to invite other people, their strengths, to play with me as well. So we take a look. How are they showing up? What are you doing? Is it effective or not? We explore, fulfillment and frustrations and optimal living versus, depletion. We look at our areas of weakness, or I like to say lesser strengths. We figure out, well, how do I mitigate around them? We get that far, and then, okay, great. I've learned a lot about myself. Well, now what about my relationships? So I start to get a little bit more clear and understand the different domains of strength, start picking up on the different cues I can pick up on from others and how they might contribute and what they need, so that I can again invite those strengths and figure out how to best support the people in my world. And so those are some of the conversations that we have in our engagement with each other.
Oh, that sounds so fascinating. And I love that you use the word play a couple of times. And that makes me think that working with you is really fun.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
Cool.
So I'm pulling up here this link at the bottom of the screen. Can you tell us a little bit about this link?
Yeah. So this is for folks if if any of this resonated with you, if there's something here that caught your attention, an area that you'd like to focus on a little bit more where you find seeking to find fulfillment or know that you've been frustrated and want to uncover what that is and change that, I'd hop on a call and let's explore and see if there's a way that we can work together and I can be of service and support you in your journey.
Awesome. And then one more link we're pulling up. This is a gift.
This is a gift.
Oh, I love it.
This is a gift. So I had the pleasure and the honor of being a part of contributing a book chapter to an anthology a year and a half ago, and this is the book is Ennobling Business for Success, and this is my book chapter. So I'd be honored for you to download, and it's my story, really, and how and why I fell in love with strengths, and more the reasons to explore.
Awesome. Well, I can't wait to download and read that. So thank you, Nermine, so much for sharing these gifts with us. And thank you for being here and talking strengths. I have like 1,000 more questions, so we might have to do a part 2 of this conversation. But it has been such a delight to have you with me today. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me and for just the fun conversation, just getting each of us getting to be who we are.
Yeah.
How about that?
Yeah, and that's where the magic happens. So, my friends, thank you so much for joining us today. And we look forward to talking with you next week as I have another interesting guest talking about another interesting thing. So, we will see you next time. Bye, everyone.